very much, Dr. Alan Khan. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship today. Can I thank the Petitions Committee for granting this important debate and my honourable friend, the member for South Cotswolds, for opening the debate with such a powerful speech. And I'd like to welcome the new Minister to her place too. I look forward to working with her. As I think she's heard today, she has her work cut out. I'd like to start by paying tribute to the now over 125,000 people, including 323 in my own constituency of Twickenham, who have signed this petition and brought this important debate to the House today. And I'd also like to pay tribute to the numerous campaign groups and charities who have been championing this cause. And I'd also like to thank the many thousands of teachers and support staff up and down the country who are trying their very best to make our broken SEND system work in the best interests of our children. Many of those who signed the petition will be parents, carers, family members of children with special educational needs or disabilities who are deeply worried about the proposals that have been reported in the media over recent months. These are not families who are gaming the system, hijacking the system, as I think some reform members have suggested, or taking the system for a ride. They are simply parents and carers who are juggling, advocating and caring for their children, but they are also being subjected to a drip feed of rumours in the press about their children's future and how their rights might be reduced. MPs on all sides of this House know only too well from their inbox and their mailbag, as we've heard so clearly and powerfully today, the many painful stories from their constituents about how they've had to fight for their child or children to get the support they need to learn and thrive. Some, sadly, have struggled for so long they've had no choice but to remove their child from school. These are not decisions that parents or carers make lightly. It is clear for many families the current SEND system is not working. The Conservatives left a system that their own former Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, described as lose, lose, lose. And despite increasing funding, outcomes for children and young people have not improved, and far too many are left without adequate support. At the same time, as we've heard, local authorities are being driven to the financial brink, and we have a system that is far too adversarial. Parents should not have to fight for their child to receive an education. We urgently need to see an overhaul of this whole system, but any reforms without children and families at their heart will fail. Scrapping education, health and care plans, EHCPs, in a vacuum will not work. We need to see fundamental changes in how we deliver SEND support. Now, the Minister may be aware that the Right Honourable Member for Kingston and Surbiton and I wrote to the Prime Minister and Education Secretary back in July. We outlined 5 principles for SEND reform. And we believe that we Liberal Democrats believe these 5 principles should be the guiding light for any reform of our SEND system. Firstly, put children and families first. Any reforms cannot be a repeat of the welfare reform disaster which was a Treasury-driven, cost-cutting exercise. The voices of children and families should be at the heart of any reforms that are brought forward. But it was clear from the rally today that many feel that their voices aren't necessarily being heard. Children's rights to SEND assessment and support must be maintained. Secondly, as many honourable members have said, early identification is key. We know the earlier we act, the quicker we can stop needs spiralling. That means investing in early identification and intervention now. There are several educational and developmental checkpoints during a child's early years and through primary schools, which could be expanded to identify additional needs. I'd welcome information on what work ministers are doing in this area. The Education Policy Institute has found that children with special educational needs who started reception last year were over a year behind their peers. Staggeringly, those with an EHCP were already 20 months behind. We have got to work on narrowing that gap in the early years and giving children the help they need as soon as possible. The former Minister for Early Years failed to answer this question when I asked him on the floor of the House, and I hope the new Schools Minister will address how much of the £760 million for SEND transformation announced in the spending review will go towards early identification and intervention. Thirdly, we need to boost specialist capacity. With 19.5% of school pupils in England identified as having special educational needs, capacity in state school provision must be increased alongside improvements to inclusive mainstream provision. This means investment in new school buildings and staff training. The Liberal Democrats are urging the government to rapidly proceed with the opening of the 67 special free schools stuck in the pipeline, and I welcome measures in the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill, which will allow local authorities to open special schools. We know that applications were repeatedly blocked by the previous Conservative government, despite the desperate need for our state special schools, which are bursting at the seams. I'm very short of time, but I'll allow him.
Just on that point about upskilling teachers, the Mulberry School in my constituency of Witney does a fantastic job in terms of outreach from specialist schools to regular schools, upskilling teachers and really using skills inside the SEND schools to teach teachers in the broader environment would be a great thing. Do you agree?
I agree with the point my honourable friend makes, this sort of hub and spoke model, which I have heard about, which I'd like to go and see because I think it could be a good model to scale up. I also implore ministers to look at the bureaucratic hurdles that local authorities face in putting specialist units in mainstream schools. I think it was the honourable member for Hackney who mentioned that in London and other areas we've got falling school rolls. There is space opening up in our school estate to put specialist units. My own local authority has just managed to do that as of last week in Nelson School, which is a primary school, but it's now got a specialist unit for secondary pupils with the SEMH. That could provide a rapid expansion of specialist provision for children to be educated closer to home and among their friends and peers. Fourthly, we need support for local government. We know, and we've heard today, that local authorities are racking up billions of pounds worth of deficit. Some of these costs are being driven by eye-watering fees being charged by private equity-run special schools, some which are making upwards of 20% profit margin, which is just wrong and immoral and is bleeding our councils dry. They are also spending £2.26 billion on SEND transport. Now, in the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill, the government has proposed a potential profit cap on private social care providers. I was disappointed that every Labour MP voted down Liberal Democrat amendments earlier this year to cap the profits of private special schools. I hope with a new minister in her place that they will think again and their stance on this particular amendment as the bill is in the other place. Liberal Democrats are also calling for a new national SEND body to oversee and fund some of the most complex cases where needs exceed a particular cost, to put an end to the postcode lottery for support so no child is left waiting and no council left with unmanageable costs. Finally, we need a fair funding arrangement. We need to get rid of the perverse incentives that are enshrined in the £6,000 notional budget that schools are given for SEND support, and the performance and accountability regime should also not penalise schools for accepting SEND pupils. Mainstream inclusion is vital, but it's not a silver bullet. For inclusion to work, it must be properly resourced. Teachers need training, classrooms need resources, schools need capacity to meet needs, and yet we know budgets are already stretched to the max. I hear in my own constituency that teaching assistants are among the first to go, yet they are the ones who are supporting the children with special needs. Reform must be rooted in improving children's lives, not simply managing down costs or limiting access to support. And we've heard today some of the local authority funding reforms is going to penalise local authorities like my own in particular, but across London and other parts of the country significantly. Dr. Alan Khan, in conclusion, it is abundantly clear that the SEND system in its current form is too slow, too inconsistent, too adversarial. We need and want a system where children get the right support at the right time, regardless of where they live. Change is urgently needed for families across the country. They cannot afford to wait. I sincerely hope that the reshuffle will not cause further delays to the White Paper, and we Liberal Democrats have constructively offered to work with ministers on getting this right with our 5 principles for reform. The government can't afford to sleepwalk into another Treasury-led disaster. They have to get this right, because every child, no matter their background, no matter their needs, deserves every opportunity to thrive. Thank you.